Everyone thinks retiring at 59 and a half is just about avoiding the 10% penalty. But let me tell you, if that's the reason you're picking this age, you're missing the point. Because retirement isn't just one big phase, it's really 3 completely different lives you'll go through. And most people only plan for the first. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to retire at 59 and a half the right way by planning for all 3. That's 3 different opportunities for tax strategy, withdrawal planning, and lifestyle adjustments. By the way, I'm Rachel Camp. I am a CFP professional and the founder of Camp Wealth, and we help people retire before age 65. So let's dive in. Phase number 1 is your freedom years. This lasts from about age 59 and a half to 65. Your energy is high, time is finally yours. You decide how to fill your days, but the financial planning in this phase is so important to get right. Starting with the mindset and the lifestyle of this phase, the reason I'm such a fan of retiring early is because of energy. The happiest retirees I've seen in this phase embrace experimentation, seeing this phase as an extension of their purpose and not the end of it. So yes, travel and time spent with family and friends, but also learning new things like a language or an instrument, serving on a board, or starting a small business even that's focused on your passions. A blank calendar can be daunting and frankly boring after a while, or it can be an opportunity. How would I spend my days if my time was my own? What would I do if income no longer mattered? This is really the chance to explore that. That's why I love phase 1. From the financial side, we are going to walk through your phase 1 checklist. So checklist item number 1 is ACA health plan in place or marketplace insurance. We have to make sure you get on health insurance, of course, before Medicare age. Unless you work part-time at a place that provides benefits, you're going to have to figure out health insurance for this gap. For most people, that means navigating marketplace insurance. No, it's not that difficult, and for a lot of retirees, can be really affordable. I'm going to look at 3 different income levels here to see what health insurance may cost me and my husband, for example. So I looked at these numbers in North Carolina just because they are middle-of-the-road state for premiums. But starting with a low modified adjusted gross income of $40K, I go to marketplace.gov. I added my zip code, family information, and income. And based on this income, we receive a large premium tax credit. Because of our low reported taxable income, which is possible in early retirement to have a low taxable income, we receive a lot of subsidy. So if I look at silver plans, it looks like the premiums range from $80 to about $150 a month. $40K, again, may sound really low, and it is, but if you are primarily relying on cash reserves for income for your first few years of retirement or your brokerage account with some small gains, it's certainly possible for your reported income to be really low, even if your spending is in the $80 to $100 to $120K range. All right, let's say we bump up our income to $80K just to be conservative. What does that look like? Our premium tax credits, of course, drop a bit, but we still qualify for some. So now the monthly premiums, if we're looking at the silver plans, are more in the $600 to $800 a month range. Finally, we're going to look at a really high reported income of $160K. This might be the number you want to assume if A, your spending is just that high, and 2, you only have retirement accounts, pre-tax retirement accounts that you can pull from. At this income level, you would not qualify for any tax credits for health insurance. Your monthly premium for silver plans would be in the $1,600 to $2,200 range. This might be fine. We just have to make sure we plan for this added cost in this first phase. Key here, though, is to keep modified adjusted gross income below 400% of federal poverty level so you can qualify for subsidies. This ties directly into your Roth conversion strategy in phase 1. So checkpoint number 2 under phase 1 is your tax strategy. And phase 1 is the golden zone for Roth conversions. But strategy in this phase includes understanding the trade-off of converting IRA to Roth dollars and increasing the cost of your health insurance. In phase 1, we are taking advantage of the standard deduction and the 10 and 12% tax brackets. Now, the entire premise of this video is retiring at age 59 and a half. That's not a random age. The reason we chose such a specific age is because that's the age you can access retirement accounts without that 10% penalty. But honestly, I would avoid retirement accounts as much as possible in phase 1 for income. Instead, I'd be sure to have cash and brokerage accounts to pull from to keep my reported income low. So if I needed, say, $80K in income, $80K to spend, I could pull that entire amount from the brokerage account. And if we assume half of that, so $40K is long-term capital gains, that would go on my tax return as a long-term capital gain. I could also convert $30K if I'm married from my IRA to Roth IRA, filling up the standard deduction for a married filing joint. The result is I meet my income needs, I reduce my future RMDs, and I keep health insurance premiums low. It's a win-win. Now, checkpoint number 3 in this phase is your withdrawal strategy. The entire point of early retirement is to enjoy life. So I really want to spend in this first phase. Personally, I choose a dynamic withdrawal strategy that allows me to start spending high. My personal favorite is the flexible spending strategy created by Nick Majuli. I cover it in another video. But this breaks out your income into discretionary spending and fixed, or a floor and a bonus spending bucket. The gist of this is if I'm willing to cut my discretionary spending, the bonus spending, like travel, eating out, if I'm willing to cut that down in down times, then I can start retirement with a higher withdrawal rate. If I find half my spending is discretionary, then I may be able to start with a 5 to 5% withdrawal rate, maybe even more depending on what guaranteed income sources you have coming later in life. Most retirees start retirement really conservative because of the difficulty of the transition from the loss of a paycheck to now having to create their own. They're nervous, they're still getting used to it, but this is why a detailed plan can be so helpful to ease some of that anxiety. Now, checkpoint number 4 is your asset allocation. Because we are in this gap of pre-Medicare and pre-Social Security, your portfolio is doing a lot of heavy lifting for your spending needs. This, combined with sequence of returns risk, which is the risk you retire into a down market, means that phase 1 should be a conservative asset allocation. This really varies by person, by risk tolerance, by the size of your portfolio, relative to your spending needs. It can be anywhere from 60-40 to 80-20. But for the fixed side of your portfolio, the key is to have money you can access that is going to stay stable. This may be a little bit of cash and some short duration bonds, treasuries, munis, whatever you land on. The key is being able to rely on stable income. Now, while phase 1 is the most tax advantaged, high energy chapter of your retirement, it doesn't last forever. Eventually, structure returns. So let's talk about the next phase, how it intertwines with phase 1. Phase 2 is what I call the stability years, and it lasts from about age 65 to 75. In this phase, we offload some risk, income becomes a bit more predictable, but that doesn't mean we are done with the planning part. So the phase 2 checklist we are now going to walk through includes health insurance, Social Security, tax strategy, withdrawal rates, and more. Starting off, though, with mindset and your lifestyle, this is where your routine really starts to deepen. For most people, 6 years into retirement, you have things kind of figured out. I also noticed that purpose shifts towards mentoring the next generation here. Community involvement becomes a little more important to them, and sometimes even downsizing. Depending on your energy levels or just general life desires, the aggressive traveling and maybe part-time work even you just did in phase 1 starts to wind down here. But I'm not going to give you a roadmap for how to approach this because if you have great energy, have no desire to slow down, then by all means, keep doing whatever you're doing. The happiest retirees I see, though, stay involved, they challenge themselves, and they are very social. Now, getting into the financial side, starting off with health insurance, marketplace insurance is finally done. Phew, we are now jumping on Medicare. You will want to review your options here, making sure you choose the right plan for you. One thing you will have to start watching in this phase is IRMA or Medicare surcharges. If your income is too high, you could be charged an additional fee. This is where your tax strategy comes into play. Somewhere in phase 2, you will also turn on Social Security. If you're lucky, you may also have a pension start in this phase. Pensions and Social Security will complicate the Roth conversion strategy a bit as these income sources start to fill up your tax brackets. So in phase 2, you will continue with these Roth conversions, most likely. The amount just may shrink. What you will watch for here is jumping into a much higher tax bracket. From 10 to 12%, it's not a big deal, but the jump from 12 to 22% is quite a large jump. So this is where we really spend our time making sure that if we need to jump to that level, it's worth it. Because some people's strategy will involve filling up the 22, maybe even 24% bracket with Roth conversions. It's all relative depending on what your high and low income tax brackets are. The other thing you'll want to watch here is your capital gains tax bracket. In phase 1, many people can easily stay in the 0% bracket, even with a very high income. But in phase 2, when we have those other income sources coming in, you may start to jump up into the 15% long-term capital gains bracket. In phase 2, what often happens is we deplete our brokerage account, which may be fine. It may be completely part of the plan. But we now consider starting to draw from retirement accounts to change the strategy. Next, we're able to revisit our withdrawal strategy. Once you are 10 to 15 years into retirement, we are starting to fully escape the risky zone. Either those 10 to 15 years, the first 10 to 15 years were really great, and you can enjoy really healthy spending increases, or we may have had a poor first 10 years. Portfolio is still in recovery mode, which means spending may need to stay low. The good news is Social Security should start to help with the burden from your portfolio. The next point, escaping the risky zone effects, is your asset allocation. With a shorter time horizon left, you can actually afford to be more aggressive at this point for most people. You may choose to still have a few years of safe money, but if it makes sense in your situation, phase 2 could be a time to safely increase equities again. Now, while stability years provide some breathing room, what lies ahead is the phase most people don't want to talk about, and it's also the one that matters the most for your legacy. Phase 3 is the legacy years from age 75 on. So we are going to walk through this phase 3 checklist just like we did in the first 2 phases. In this third phase, we see spending start to slow down quite a bit. Cost of healthcare could rise too in the later years, and now people start to think about their values and their legacy. Mindset in this phase tends to settle on reflection and gratitude, but it's also time to start thinking about questions like, what legacy do I want to leave? What value should my money express? With the financial side, we are going to walk through this checklist, but really this is the phase where we have a lot less control compared to phase 1 and phase 2. Healthcare is always the biggest unknown in this phase. The cost of healthcare and long-term care in later years can obviously be really large. And either we are financially ready and prepared for it, or we just aren't. For tax strategy, RMDs start, and the prep work for lowering this bill has already been done in phase 1 and phase 2. Charitable donations can be really impactful here. If you don't need your full RMD and you want to start your legacy goals now, qualified charitable distributions can be a great way to do this while decreasing the tax impact of your RMD. With the withdrawal strategy, because spending tends to decline, the shift again is on legacy. And maybe people prefer to give money away while they are still living. This is a big concept in the book Die with Zero. You can start to follow annual and lifetime exclusion gifts for your children or grandchildren. And those gifting rules really allow for massive amounts of money to be given away without any tax impact. Which brings us to the point of estate planning, which is really important in this phase. Hopefully, you already have an estate plan set up and in place, but this is an important time to make sure it's up to date and reflects what you want to have happen with your money. It can be helpful, too, to bring your beneficiaries in and talk to them now so they understand your wishes. Now, with your asset allocation, there is a chance that with reduced spending, you don't need much money from the portfolio. If this is the case, continuing to increase equities may make sense. So if you are retiring at age 59 and a half, or even just thinking about it, now you've got the roadmap for all 3 phases. Most people only plan for the start. You're already planning for the whole journey. Now, if you are not a DIYer and you want help building strategy that evolves with you from taxes to income to lifestyle, click the link below to see if we'd be a good fit in working together. And I'll see you in the next one.